Welcome back to Country Cow Designs, where we do bag patterns for bag makers. Now usually you have Joe for these videos, but for this one you've got me, and I'm going to show you how to make this strap. So you might recognize this bag. This is the no-sew crossbody we made last year, and for this one I made a slightly fancier strap using webbing with leather accents. Now I sewed this one together and people seem to really like it, and as a result we did a blog post about this a few months ago, which is all linked below with step-by-step instructions of how to make it. But it did require sewing, and now not everyone can sew through leather and webbing all at the same time. So in this video we're going to make this strap but using only rivets, so hopefully it makes it more accessible to everyone. So I hope you enjoyed this little quick tutorial how to make this nice strap for any bag. So to make this strap we're going to need 3 pieces of leather. So these are to connect to the hooks. This shape is available from our blog post, which will be linked below. And you're also going to need a piece for a strap end. So that's the leather you're going to need for this. The hardware is a 1/2 inch slider, a 1.5 inch rectangle ring, 2 1-inch hooks, because we are using 1 inch, not 1.5. That's something to pay attention to. And obviously you're going to need some D-rings to attach to your bag, but obviously that'll be when you're making the bag itself. And for this version you're going to need rivets. Of course you're going to need your webbing. So this is a 1.5 inch webbing. We sold this as part of a bundle kit a few months ago, so this is sort of a bit we held back for ourselves. You need it in 2 pieces. This is 10 inches and this is 60 inches. So if you're using a nylon webbing you can melt the edges, which will help to seal it. This is more of a cotton webbing, so I've actually used a bit of glue, a bit of fray check, just to try and seal the edges, just keep it nice and tidy. So with our blog post we gave the instructions of how to actually sew these connectors onto the hooks as part of making this strap. But I appreciate not everyone can sew through multiple layers of leather and multiple layers of thick webbing. So for this one we're going to use rivets. So no sewing machine for this one, all made using rivets. So the first thing we need to do is actually make the rivet holes. Much easier to make it at this point in the leather because we can make sure these actually line up. So what I do is I use a template, something like this. Again, all the tools, everything will be linked below. I then place this on the part of the ruler that's for 1.5 inch pieces, and then I just use an awl or something pointy just to mark where the holes are going to go. Now I'm going to fold this in half, which is what it's going to be like in a bit. I'm then going to grab this hole cutter. I'm going to punch through both sides of the leather with the marks that I've made. Now I know then that this hole is going to line up on both sides when I assemble this later. So if I do it at this stage, it's a lot easier. Of course, I'm going to have to recut the holes again for when I attach it to the webbing. But if the leather pieces are correct, it's going to help to make sure this is nice and smart. So I do that for this piece. Like so. So now we've got the 4 holes for this. I'm going to do the same to this piece and this piece, and then we can start actually assembling the pieces together ready for riveting. So now I've got all the holes in the pieces of leather I'm going to be using, and we're going to start with a smaller piece of webbing. So we'll move the big one out of the way, clear a bit of space. So taking this small piece of webbing, get your rectangle ring, slip it in first. If you have a joint, make sure that's hidden. I'm going to wrap it around so these meet together. I'm just going to clip these together now. and that's going to leave these open edge here. So now we'll take one of our connectors and we're going to fit it through the gap on our hook. Now obviously this is wider than the actual hook size, so you're going to have to fold it to pass it through. So pass it through, make sure it's the right way around first. And there we go. So that's how we get it from a 1.5 inch size webbing down to a 1 inch hook. So you'll see here now then basically what we want to do is wrap it around this edge, and then we're going to rivet right through to connect the whole thing together. But what is a nice little thing to do is actually put a little bit of glue between these pieces so they don't move around while we're connecting it. And we're also then going to glue this to the strap as well. I'm going to use some fabric tack to do that because it's quick to dry and nice and strong. With it all glued together, it's just going to be a lot easier to work with and ensure we get a nice neat finish. So that is now glued, but I want to allow this glue to dry for a bit. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to clip it all together. Now notice I'm not using like a plastic Wonder clip for this. The reason for is that Wonder clips can leave marks in the leather, which you really don't want. So I'm using just normal bulldog clips for the webbing, but then bulldog clips with a little bit of leather wrapped inside them, which I can then wrap around the leather of the strap, and it means it's all held together, but the leather part isn't being damaged in any way. Right, so I'm going to put that to one side, let the glue dry a bit to make it easier for riveting later. Right, now I'm going to work with the bigger piece of webbing. This is the strap end that I've already made, but I'm first of all going to take my slider and just put it through one part of the slider. So I'm not going to wrap it around the bar yet, but it's a bit easier if you do this now. Again, I'm going to take a little bit of glue, again just to help with the assembly, and I'm going to wrap that around the edge, making sure it's nice and square. Again, I'm just going to fit this on with some bulldog clips, and then I'm just going to again let this leave it to one side and let it dry before I carry on. So it's been about 5 minutes and this piece is firmly, reasonably attached to the webbing now. I still have the bulldog clips here just to prevent it from moving too much. So what I now need to do is recut the holes right through the webbing now as well. So this should be pretty easy because the leather ones are already there. So I'm just going straight through everything now. So that's recut. So now I can get some rivets and pass it through. Now because of the thickness of this webbing, I'm using long double cap rivets. We do sell these on our store for this very reason, to create straps like this. So I'm just going to fit all these through. Right, there we go. So the rivets are all just pushed through at the moment, so I'm going to take them through to our rivet press, finally fit them, and then this piece will be done. So now we bring back the larger piece of webbing, and there's our strap end. This has been glued on. We're going to pass it through the other side of the slider around the center bar, bring it up, make sure it's a reasonably snug fit. We don't want the bar being too loose. So then we have it like that. Now you could glue this to the webbing again to make it a bit easier to fit. The problem is you find with the top side or the grain side of leather, it doesn't always glue very well because it's kind of a polished feel. So to get around that, I'm just going to put a bulldog clip on one side just to keep it all in place. And then like we did with the other piece of the strap, I'm going to re-punch the rivet hole all through the layers. So I'm going to do one side at a time. I don't want to rush this because if the rivets don't line up or the holes don't line up, it's going to look messy. So again, using long rivets, I'm going to pass that through. You see it comes through the webbing here. Now I am going to put a little bit of fray check on that in a minute, just to stop this fraying underneath the rivet, although it shouldn't really be an issue, but it's a good time to do it. So I'm going to fit all these rivets in the same manner, and then this end of the strap, or the longer piece of webbing, will be done. So this is where we got to so far. We've got our completed small part of the strap, and we've got the slider and strap end all connected. Again, this is all only using rivets, no sewing for this back of this strap. So now what we need to do is get the last raw end of the strap, and we're going to pass it through this rectangle ring. Now doing this allows the strap to remain adjustable while still having leather accents at both ends. So we pass it through the rectangle ring here, and now I'm going to pass it up through the slider and back down again. Let's feed a bit more through so I've got a bit of room to work with. Bring this down, so there we go. Kind of an idea of what the strap's going to look like. This combination's looking pretty good, I reckon. So that leaves one raw end to sort out. So now we get our final piece of leather and our connector. And we're going to do the same thing before as we did this side, but this side's a bit easier because we've only got one piece of webbing to work with. So once again, I'm going to pass this through the hook here, and then using a bit of glue, I'm going to attach it to this end, re-punch the holes for the rivets, which will now go through the webbing as well, fit the rivets, again using a long rivet, and this strap will be done. And there we have it. Fairly quick strap to make, but I think you agree it's a little bit fancier than just a standard webbing strap. The little leather bits just make it a bit nicer. And like myself, you may feel that a 1/2 inch connector or a hook can be a bit bulky. So this gets around this problem. Using only rivets means it's really accessible to everyone to make. And as I said before, there's step-by-step instructions in our blog of how to make this using sewing. And this is a nice method for doing it using rivets. So thanks for joining me. We've got more videos coming up with bag tutorials and little tips and things like that. You'll probably have Joe again in our next video, but thanks for joining us, and see you next time.